a great day, and hugs to you, and thanks again for, I don't know, Bill, don't you get something out of her segments? I sure do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I always do. I feel like a little more hopeful after you come on, Lee. Thanks.
Praise God. Thank you.
All right. God bless you. Well, speaking of being more hopeful, it's been tough on a lot of people financially with the economy. And so whenever I post from a post on my Facebook page about getting out of debt, are you having problems with credit cards? Is your home into foreclosure? I get so many responses, and I'm saddened by how many people are in financial trouble. So once again, I have my friend in from Heupel Law, Kevin Heupel. Thanks for coming in, Kevin. Are you surprised by how many people respond to my Facebook posts? I was at first, that are just having difficulties financially.
No, I mean, a lot of people are struggling with debt. It's one of those things that it's hard to get answers to solve your debt problem. And so when you make it available or you provide a resource where people can ask questions and get answers to their situation, yeah, they're going to ask. There's a lot of people struggling with debt out there. They just don't know where to go.
Right. And there are answers that I didn't know, but I've learned from you that I've been surprised by, the creative things you can do when you're in debt. So let's take some of their questions.
Sure.
All right. First question for Kevin. Is there a way to go about debt relief negotiation without having to close all your credit cards? We would like to keep one credit card open for emergencies with keeping a very low balance on that one.
Yeah, it depends what strategy you use. There's 3 strategies for solving a debt problem. There's credit counseling, debt settlement, and bankruptcy. With credit counseling, where you repay credit cards, no.
Okay.
All credit cards go in that program. You can't save one.
And they're all closed.
They're all closed. If you file bankruptcy,
could you do like a bank card, like the
secured card?
Yes.
Or a prepaid debit card.
Oh, okay.
You can do that.
All right.
But if you go the route of bankruptcy, all the accounts get closed. So the only time if you're going to have any luck trying to keep a card, it would be debt settlement. And that's where you negotiate and you pay pennies on the dollar for each debt. And then on the one that you want to keep, you're going to have to pay the full amount. And the key there, it needs to be separate from any other bank. So if it's like let's say you have 3 Chase credit cards, you can't settle 2 of the Chase credit cards to keep one.
I see.
You're going to lose all 3. So you want to make sure it's one card at one bank. And if you can negotiate and settle the other ones, then there's a possibility of keeping that card.
When you settle that debt down and you pay pennies on the dollar for your debt, and that doesn't follow you, you don't have any mark on your, it's not like bankruptcy.
Oh, you have a mark. I mean, because you have all the missed payments on your credit
see.
report. Yeah, it takes a very hard impact on your credit score. It'll drop it around 600.
But you're already in that trouble for missing payments.
Right. Once you're in that route, you've already hit the trouble with it. So your credit score is down and it's going to get worse. The hard part with debt settlement, it just takes so long to recover after you settle the debt. So you're looking at 5 to 7 years to rebuild your credit. Whereas if you go credit counseling, there's no impact. And if you go to bankruptcy, you can actually rebuild your credit within 1 year.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Another question for Kevin. I need help with creative repayment plans. When can't a company no longer contact you regarding debt? Does Colorado have a statute of limitations?
Yes, Colorado has a 6-year statute of limitations. The key is, when does it start? And typically it starts from the date that the card or the debt is charged off your credit report, and then that marks the 6 years. So you might not pay your debt for a year, and it might be a year before the credit card company charges it off. From the charge off, then the 6-year statute of limitation applies. And what that means to people is, if somebody does not sue you within 6 years, they can never come after you for that debt. They've lost their right to collect it.
All right. Okay. Or here's another one, very specific. We make a fair amount of money, Kevin, between my husband and I. If we didn't have so much unsecured debt, it's about $100,000. We could live well. My husband was laid off. We now bring in about $8,000 a month. The majority of that goes to credit card debts. We have a house. We have a car that we have a lease on. We have tuition and daycare expenses. So basically, they're bringing in $8,000 a month, and they have $100,000 in debt. And I know you have a formula for this. Do they need to file for bankruptcy?
Absolutely. Anytime your unsecured debt's more than 20% of your annual income, you lose the ability to pay it off.
Really?
These people are
only
making
20% of your annual income, you lose the ability to pay it off?
Right. And so they're making $96,000 a year, which is almost $20,000. Their unsecured debt's at $100,000. The reality is they're just struggling to make the minimum payments. So they're going to be one of those people, on the surface, is going to be better off in bankruptcy because they can wipe out the debt, rebuild their life in just 1 year.
All right, great. Carol says, Kevin, I need to find an inexpensive way to file for bankruptcy. She's she can't afford it right now. I mean, as you probably run into a lot, people are in financial trouble. How do they afford it?
Yeah, there's a way that you can file under a Chapter 13 where you can pay your attorney fees over a 3 to 5 year period, and that's a good way to get started. With some of our clients, if you qualify, you can file for zero money down. That's Chapter 13.
All right. And in terms of the consultation, it's free for them to come in. They can talk to you or one of your attorneys for an hour, basically, and kind of get everything in front of you guys and some answers?
What we do is we look at your income, your assets, the debts, and what your goals are, and we're going to find the best solution for you, whether it's credit counseling, debt settlement, or even bankruptcy.
And just so you know, Kevin actually worked with one of my best friends from high school, and she was so relieved after she worked with him because she did not have to file for bankruptcy, but she said Kevin was the first person that put it into layman's terms that she really understood, so she could finally start sleeping again, and a lot of her anxiety really went away. She just absolutely thinks you're wonderful.
Yeah, great.
So how do people get in touch with you?
They can call us toll-free at 855-322-9100.
Go ahead again.
It's 855-322-9100.
And you can always email me, angieaustinnews@gmail.com. I know Kevin well. I can get you in touch with him, and he'll be back answering more questions over the next few weeks. Coming up next, we have a grandmother with Down's Designs. I found her on the internet. She is amazing. She has a little girl, a granddaughter with Down syndrome, and she decided, hey, her clothes don't fit, so I'm going to start my own clothing line. Her story is pretty amazing. Welcome back to the good news. You know, when I post on Facebook, are you having financial issues? Do you need to, file for bankruptcy? Are you curious about maybe getting your debt reduced? There are a lot of creative ways to do that. But the number one question that I get from people when I post something about debt relief is about student loans. So many people have questions about student loans, and they're so hampered by them. So I invited my friend Kevin Heupel back in to answer some questions about student loans because things have changed a little bit. There are some changes in terms because everybody just thinks like this is the way it is, and for the rest of your life you'll be barely able to make this payment. Because I know people, Kevin, that can barely make their loan payments because they're not making enough money to pay off the loans from college that were supposed to get them a career that would make them a lot of money.
It's a big problem right now. College has become so expensive that the reality is most people are taking out loans to go to college, and then you come out of college and you want to try to get a job which you studied for, and it's hard to find those jobs because the baby boomer population's working much longer.
Yeah, they are.
And the reality is there's not those type of jobs available right now. So as a result, people are taking jobs that don't pay as much. And you're right. People have this mentality that they're kind of stuck with these student loan payments. And they think, well, either I got to make that payment or I got to go into forbearance or deferment. And as a result,
explain that for people that don't know about forbearance and deferment.
Sure. What forbearance and deferment is basically the same thing, but what it is you go to the loan company and say, look, I can't afford to make the payment. Will you just give me a period of time I don't have to pay? And usually they'll give you a year or two right away.
Okay.
And that you don't have to pay it. The problem is...
You can't pay anything then?
Yeah, you don't have to pay anything.
Okay.
And so people do it because it's like, great, I don't have to pay my loans for 1, 2, or 3 years.
Wow.
The problem is the interest continues to capitalize on that loan.
Okay.
And you might have a $25,000 loan. You can't make that minimum payment. You call them and say, look, can I get a deferment? Yeah, we'll give you a 3-year deferment. And then after the 3 years, you come out, now the loan's $32,000.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, guess what? The payments went up.
Right.
With it. And that's where people are really getting stuck in this student loan cycle.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And the good news is there are other repayment options out there.
All right. So what are some of the other repayment options for student loans?
Yeah, the federal government, what they do is they have 2 categories. They have loan repayment and then they have income-based repayment. With loan repayment, you're focused on repaying the entire amount of the loan. And let's just use our example of $25,000.
Okay.
And with loan repayment, there's 4 options. You can pay the loan amount over 10 years.
Okay.
You can pay it over 25 years. Or you can do these graduated payments of 10 and 25 years. And what I mean by that is if you're doing a 10-year graduated payment, your loan payment might start really small at $100 a month. Then every 2 years it increases to where the last 2 years it might be $1,000 a month.
Okay.
And what the thinking is that as you get a job and you're going along, you're going to earn more money to support those increased payments. The reality is people have not been getting raises to support the increase of the payments. And so that's kind of the way the loan balance payment work.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of flexibility because you take $25,000 with an 8% interest rate, divide it by 120 months for 10 years, that's your payment. And if you can't make it, you can't make it.
Right.
The better solutions are these income-based repayment plans.
Income-based repayment plan.
Right.
Okay.
And with those, what they do is they allow you to pay 10 to 15% of your disposable income as your loan payment. So now we don't really care that your loan balance is $25,000. What we're going to do is we're going to look at your income and we're going to deduct basic things that you need to live on, rent, car payments, insurance, gas, groceries, utilities. And then we're going to take 10 to 15% of the leftover, and that's going to be your repayment.
That sounds great. How do you go about doing that?
Well, what you do is you can give us a call and we can help you with it, or you go to the Department of Higher Education and you can kind of go through their process.
Okay.
What we do is we'll have people come into our office and we'll do an analysis. So we'll get all your loan information together.
And they come in for free for the consultation.
Come in for the consultation. They hire us to do the analysis. With the analysis, we identify what income-based repayment plans are available to them, and then we will actually submit the documentation and the application to help people get these income-based plans.
Well, that sounds like something that's really doable for people.
Oh, it is. And the best thing about income-based plans is that there's a forgiveness element attached to it. If you work for a government or a nonprofit entity and you make these income-based repayment plans for 10 years, and let's say you don't pay off the loan at the end of 10 years, you actually have the balance forgiven, meaning you don't have to pay it. And if you don't work for a government or nonprofit, then it's 25 years.
Okay.
So if you find that, you had $150,000 of student loans coming out of school, but your income was such that after 25 years you couldn't pay it off, the government will forgive the balance and you don't have to pay it. And that's the biggest power right now about these income-based repayment plans is that you can pay out a budget you can afford, plus you can get forgiveness after 10 or 25 years.
Wow, that's new. Did you know that, Producer Bill? Yeah. So some of this is new because people really, I think, just always thought there was nothing you could do with a student loan. Mm-hmm. Any other misconceptions or things you want people to know about student loans?
Well, if you're in default, there's some things that you can do to get out of it. And you have to get out of default to take advantage of these income-based plans.
Ah, okay. So how do you do that?
So if you're in default, you have two ways to do it. One, you can consolidate all your loans into one.
All right.
That'll cure the default. Or the other way is you go into a rehabilitation program where you show the government that you can make this income-based plan for 9 months. And once you do that, then you'll get approved to continue on that income-based plan going forward.
It's a financial rehab.
It is.
Yeah.
And the best thing is once you do it, then they'll clear up your credit and they'll show that you're in good standing on your credit report.
Yeah, and that's wonderful to get that back. Well, that's sure a relief. So if people want to see you for free, they can call your office, they can get a free consultation, and how do they reach you?
They can give us a call. We have a toll-free number, and it's 855-322-9100. And if you miss that number, it's 855-322-9100, or visit my website, getdebtfreewithme.com.
And you can always email me if you have questions about Kevin. He and I are friends, and he's helped my friends before in the past. One in particular that he really helped, my old high school girlfriend. So if you have questions about Kevin or you're curious about whether or not you want to go see him, feel free to email me, angieaustinnews@gmail.com. And what else can you help people with, Kevin?
We can help them with getting out of debt, whether it's credit counseling, debt settlement, or even bankruptcy.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you so much for listening to The Good News. I'd love it if you went to my website, angieaustinradio.com. You can see my podcast there and also a list of my sponsors. One in particular that I'm helping right now. I just really have a heart for what she does. She runs All Heart Home Care, and I would let her take care of my own mom. Thanks for listening to The Good News.
Thanks for listening to The Good News with Angie Austin. Find the podcast of past shows at angieaustinradio.com.